for handling that. Well, good afternoon. Welcome. Bienvenidos, everyone, to Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. It's April, which means today, the second Sunday of the month is our special national/international Poetry Month edition of our new books showcase. And today I'm going to use a word that I don't think I've ever used on Cultivating Voices before. We have a humdinger of a program for you with poets that boast some incredible poetry intersections with each other, of which I will enumerate and share with you as we move through this really beautiful program that we have for you today. But before we pivot to today's Fantasia of Poetry with Julie Marie Wade, Denise Duhamel, Octavio Quintanilla, and Tina Carlson, a monumental, memorable shout out to our Poets Focus features, Pam Mueller, Damian Donnelly, and Rachel Stanley, and our open micers last Sunday for giving new and old meaning to our program on memory. It was such a poignant, power-filled exploration, which, if you weren't with us live, of course, you can view on our YouTube recordings, which usually come out the same day, thanks to Don Krieger. Well, a couple of other reminders before I introduce our first poet for today. Our chat, as always, is live, so show the love and show your appreciation respectfully, mindfully, enthusiastically. And of course, if you have the resources, please do consider buying 1, 2, 3, or all 4 books that are showcased today, and maybe even multiple copies to share the poetry bounty. Well, speaking of bounty, what I love about this reading, as I said just a moment ago, is that it is chock full of intersections. Its interconnectedness takes care of everything for the program today. I barely have to say anything, but of course, you know that's not what's going to happen. Our first reader today has been such a generous contributor to Cultivating Voices, as she is in other aspects of her life. And today, I just really want to congratulate her for her prolific writing career. She has multiple books out right now that would be considered new books in our showcase. And it's only matched by her truly wonderful teaching career. And I was so fortunate to meet a number of her students and former students in Miami last December and watch them interact together with their professor. And that interaction really just told me so much about the integrity with which Julie carries herself. And I also want to just give a shout out that we are now trading card pals. Julie is card number 62 in Headmistress Press's Lesbian Poet Trading Card Series, and I was just brought in as card number 85. So I'm a little happy about that. Well, Julie Marie Wade's most recent collections include The Merry Years from Texas Review Press, 2024, selected by Michael Martone for the 2023 Clay Reynolds Novella Prize, Quick Changed Artist, which she'll be reading from today, Poems from Anhinga Press 2025, which was selected for that prize by Octavio Quintanilla for the 2023 Anhinga Prize in Poetry, Fisk by Analogy from Cutbank Prose Chapbook Series 2025, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, the latest, 20 Guzzles or Gazals, however you pronounce it, for 2020 From Harbor Editions and editor Allison Blevins, who was on the program with us in March, also this year, which was co-authored with Denise Duhamel. A finalist for the National Poetry Series and a winner of the Lambda Literary Award for Lesbian Memoir, Julie Marie Wade teaches in the creative writing program at Florida International University in Miami. And my hat goes off to you, my friend.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you so much. I'm going to show the cover of this book actually because it has a very strong local resonance. This book, I don't think it could have been written if I hadn't moved to Florida or finished if I hadn't moved to Florida. And so this cover is actually the sadly now defunct, and the building was torn down during the pandemic, but this was a silhouette on a wall outside the Dania Beach Disco Club that I passed almost every day, and I loved it so much. And I thought this has to be part of this project. And so thanks to my sister-in-law, Kim Striegel, who is also a photographer, it is part of it. And then on the back, there's another side of the wall with me. So this really sort of captures the place where I live and in all of its quick change artistry. And for today, I thought I would read two love poems because I feel like we need more love poems, and an elegy. So that is actually also to say three love poems. And I will start with a longer one. It's called Domestic This. Happiness is not the same as joy, or is it? I want to know. We are talking tonight of how joy rises out of happiness, an extension like wings, or descends, a chandelier from a very high ceiling. Isn't it the difference between the kite and its tail, or the ship and its sail, or a single whorled rose and the soil from which it grew? Some of us have wine. Others are stirring coffee with musical spoons. We become easy with our voices and our gestures, everything a possible poem. Happiness is the ladder that lifts us to the highest window, you say, your hand softly cupping my knee beneath the table. But is joy the window or the looking in? Everyone agrees I am too persistent with my questions. Someone cuts the cake and refills the water glasses. But happiness is not the same as bliss, or is it? I want to know. Bliss is fleeting by its nature, a shooting star, solar eclipse. Yes, yes, a solar eclipse, others echo. You never hear anyone say, don't worry, be blissful. You can only receive bliss, I think. Open yourself up to it. Bliss isn't something you can summon. They all concur, suddenly pleased with themselves. Little bliss, like a wafer placed in the hand. Is joy the officiant, happiness the altar? Some years ago, I was driving through Ohio, I say. There was a field, orange and gold with late November light, and at least 50 black steers wandering along the fence line. You smile at me as you carry little towers of plates toward the kitchen. You have heard this before. Then it started snowing, an early snow, unexpected, and on the black backs of all the steers, this soft white blanket appeared. It didn't melt, it only thickened. I had to stop the car so I could watch them, wait for my breath to fill up my chest again. That isn't bliss you're talking about, someone says after a while. That's beauty. I think she's right. Beauty makes you contemplate, slows you down. Bliss catalyzes. It's a quickening force. And what about happiness? Where does happiness come in? Maybe happy people are more likely to see beautiful things. Some of us have early mornings tomorrow. Others have dogs that must be let out, children who must be tucked in. Their headlights sweep the road in succession, and the door is finally closed. If you're coming to bed, will you switch off the lights? I cross the cool threshold into our room, stretch out the length of the bed. What about that movie you love? The writer who says, at last she could define what happiness was. I had forgotten. My lips split in the dark. Two heads on a pillow. Still, I wonder, the image seems more about contentment than anything else. Happiness is not the same as contentment. Or is it? I want to know. She presses her finger over my lips, lowers herself softly against me, our bodies unfolding like wings, filling like chambers of golden light. Joy, bliss, beauty, happiness. Please stop talking, she says. We become easy with our gestures. Old sweet communion. Okay, I say. Everything a possible poem. So the second love poem is called Epithalamium, which is the Greek word for a wedding song or a wedding poem. And since I do live in Florida, this book is, reckons with a lot of aspects of Florida. And my partner and I got married here. Well, we didn't get married here. That's the key. We got married in Washington State where we met in 2014, but Florida didn't become a state that recognized our marriage until January of 2015. So there was a very strange limbo for 11 months when we were married, but not. And we had very strange experiences being federally recognized as married, but locally and statewide recognized not as married. And so I thought, if somebody's going to write a wedding song for us, it's going to have to be me in this limbo. And so this poem is written in couplets because we're a couple. And then happily, not too long after Florida legalized same-sex marriage, the whole country moved in that direction. So, but this is a little homage to that time. Epithalamium, February 24th, 2014. What is this wedding song but a curl of the tongue, a flush of the skin, something tender as the epithelium? It is not the whole story, of course. Skin never is, not even the stratum lucidum, that thinnest skin of palm and sole. The whole story does not belong in a song. It never did. Recall instead the closed hand unfolding into chrysanthemum, the single flower fist, the wrinkled pink. Then think papillate of two palms pressed, 10 fingers laced, the knuckles hard, round prominence. We become a locket. The whole story is somewhere between a vowel and a vowel. Once, a long time ago, we learned to chant A, E, I, O, U, but it's not what I owe you, and it's not what you owe me. The whole story is a lozenge dissolving in description, a taste, a test case. It coats the throat for a song we have been practicing years before the music swells. Recall also how the waitress says, every jukebox has a broken heart. That's why lovers learn to sing a cappella. Give me your hand then, and with it, your palm up, your knuckles down, your green nexus of glorious veins. Give me the ring that was forged in heat and now purports to hold the heart's impossible longing. Feel it glide over the knuckle, lodge in the web. The whole story is a circle, of course. It is also a red flag which becomes a white flag, roses damasked red and white, which becomes a folding, a pocket square for patting the eyes when the time comes. The time always comes. Not morose, but more rose, the gardener exclaims, which is how love gives even melancholy a good name. And the last poem that I'm going to read is, I believe, The only poem that was added to this book after Octavio, I'm so excited to hear him read as well, after he chose it for the prize. Usually you don't get to make very many changes, but in the time between when the book was chosen and it went to press, someone very dear to Denise and also to me, Maureen Seaton, passed away, and I wanted to add something to the book in honor of her. And I can't think about South Florida and my life here without thinking about Denise and without thinking about Maureen. And so my editors at Anhinga said, yes, there she is on the cover of the When I Was Straight anthology. My editor said, I think we can do that. And I added an epigraph for the collection from Maureen's work. And then a note at the end about, some of the serendipities. And Sandy was speaking about connections. There are a lot of connections with this book as well. And that the editor at Anhinga Press had been a student of Denise and Maureen, whom I didn't know. And so then this was another connection that brought us together. So I wrote a poem called Hollywood Beach High Bun in memory of Maureen Seaton. And I love high buns because they're a hybrid form. And they come from Basho, who all of my hybrid forms graduate students, we read his collected works. And we love his haiku, but the haibun is the form he invented. The haiku is the form he popularized, but this is his form, which ends with a haiku. And I thought it would be a good poem to end on because I believe the next reader is Denise, and this will include her in the poem. So, and Hollywood Beach is very close to where Denise lives, where I live, and very close to where Maureen lived for a long time. Hollywood Beach haibun. Here I go again, past the thatched roof of the ice cream shop, the Surrey rental station, the little window where coffee is sold at 6 a.m., but also fudgesicles, cigarettes, and root beer floats. Maureen, I'm blowing kisses in the wind as I run past Hayes Street, past the Diane Motel, which you once wrote lost all of its vowels in a poem. Well, a hurricane you described in a poem. Once the D.N. Motel was just a place in a poem you might have dreamed up for all I knew, prodigious dreamer. I didn't know you at all then, unless somehow I did. Why are certain people so familiar always? When you were a Jersey girl, I was an embryo. When you were a New Yorker, I was a Seattleite, which is funny when you think of the darkness there, but I didn't mind. Once, for a spell, we were both Floridians, and maybe witches too. We conjured something grand. Or maybe I was the spell you cast, a lucky figment you once cautioned against dyeing her hair. I dyed it anyway, Maureen, for years, and then I stopped dyeing it. I listened at last. Forgive the clumsy segue here, but how I wish I could have stopped you from dying. Not your Lucy Ricardo red, that Titian trademark, but your cessation of breath, your passing on to the next plane, your last joyride in the yellow Volkswagen of mortal mischief and mayhem. Whatever you call it, I am beyond displeased. I hate your dying, Maureen, as much as I loved your living. The red stop signs on Surf Road raise a chorus I choose to ignore on the B side, northbound, sunlight as sticky as that ice cream now. Oh, humid. Oh, heartbreak. I've tried all the poems, but nothing helps or not enough. It's 7 a.m. and I might as well eat cold spumoni from a waffle cup. I might as well stand here on the street where you lived and hum that saccharine song from My Fair Lady. What does it hurt? What does it help? Everything's a seesaw, present tense, then past. Somewhere there's an I and an A and an E that I'll bury for you in the sand. Sweet viceroy of vowels, wise queen of consonants. Later, I'll meet Denise at Giorgio's. We'll share a huge plate, frittata, no peppers, your favorite. Thank you, everyone. I can't wait to hear you all read.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Julie. And I think it's so appropriate to begin with the love poems. I really do. And they're stunning, and I loved hearing them for the first time. Thank you for bringing them to the program. And another thing I really appreciate about you is you are always calling people into the readings. I think of the times I've seen you read, which, I like seeing you read, so I try to go to as many as possible. And, when you read here with us to kind of honor Minnie Bruce Pratt, when on the collectibles with Audre Lorde, and of course, I feel like Maureen is always ever present now with you in your readings. Um, you seem to be you seem to be casting a spell out toward her now. And I think that's beautiful, as well as your collaborations with our next reader, the incredible, illustrious Denise Duhamel. And so I want to just give a beautiful shout out, to that. It's a really divine triangle that you, Denise, and Maureen have. And I know that it's like a quadrilateral or a pentagon, or I know that it keeps expanding. Um, but today I really like thinking of it as that triangle. And so thank you so much for being here today. Really beautiful. The book is Quick Change Artist, chosen by Octavio Quintanilla, who we'll be reading in just a little while, with many cameos by Denise. And I'm going to turn to Denise right now. Hello, my dear.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it is always a joy. I want to just start out before, I always say a little something before I go to the formal biography. Here's the cover of the book, the new book, Pink Lady from Pittsburgh Press, University of Pittsburgh Press. But I want to also show the connection here, which is your other book that just came out with Julie. Now, do you say guzzles or gozzles?
Guzzle. We
Guzzle.
say guzzle.
We say
Like
guzzle.
tomato, tomato, but guzzle. I think
I
it's guzzle.
know, right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, guzzle. So the book is the latest, 20 Guzzles for 2020, published it just came out very recently. And in a collaboration with Denise and Julie Marie Wade. And I first was introduced to Julie's work by reading The Unrhymables, which was your other a prose collaboration that the two of you published in, I'm going to say 2019. I don't have it in front of me.
Good
So,
job.
okay, thank you so much. So, again, folks, this reading today is about interconnectedness and intersections of the most beautiful, beautiful kind. And I had the opportunity to see you read very recently at AWP. I don't know if you know, but like I took pictures of you at that reading in wherever that bar was. I need to send them to you. So was I have had a little preview from Pink Lady from that night. I got to hear that one scintillating poem that you shared. And again, folks, the book is Pink Lady from University of Pittsburgh Press. Well, Denise Duhamel, it's, again, um, she actually makes me speechless. I'm a little speechless. Her most recent books of poetry are, as I've been saying, Pink Lady from Pittsburgh Poetry Series 2025. Second Story, which she did her new book showcase from that
Yes.
book, 2021, and Scald 2017, Blowout 2013, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. Again, she is one of the queens of collaboration in this country, easily said. She's with one of her collaborators here, and in the spirit world, her collaborator, Maureen Seaton. I just like bringing in Maureen's energy whenever we can. She is a distinguished university professor and colleague of Julie's in the MFA program at Florida International University in Miami, and she lives in Hollywood. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you, Sandy. And I just saw that Kate noticed that olive oil was sitting behind me. So this is Maureen's olive oil, which her daughter sent to me after she passed. And these are all of Maureen's books, which I just put like on top of the bookshelf, So there's a little altar to Maureen, and the poems I'm going to be reading are about my mother who passed a year before Maureen. So I feel like very good energy. And when Sandy lifted up the book cover, that's actually my mom who graduated nursing school in 1957. So that's her. That's my mama. So I'll read the poems. There are a series of elegies. My mom died in 2021. And here we go. This is called Wackadoodle. My mother was a fan of the word, often peppering her sentences with it. She visited me in Florida the day after Trump won in 2016. When I'd sent her a ticket, I thought we'd both be celebrating the first woman president. When I picked her up at the Fort Lauderdale airport, nothing looked different. I was baffled, sure that the planes of the world would stop flying, their wings too heavy with grief. I know, of course, planes don't have feelings, and I was projecting onto those silver beasts. My mother and I tried to talk about other things, but we kept coming back to America's withering future. Once in a while, my mother would say, "We just have to give him a chance, I guess." And I would nod, though deep inside, I knew Trump was a flim-flam sham, that things would get worse. We didn't know yet that this would be my mother's last visit. We didn't know she would wind up in a nursing home ravaged by COVID-19. We didn't know the US would be ravaged by an insurrection. She was ravishing that November, and men kept trying to talk to her. No hint of death anywhere in her torso. One old dude wearing a scarlet strip club cap cornered her while I was in a restaurant bathroom. All flirting is ruined, my mother said. All I can think of is that wackadoodle, grabbing women by the you-know-what. And this is called Summer of Love. Decades before my mom went to live at Mount St. Rita's Health Center, she worked there as a nurse, taking care of elderly patients, mostly nuns back then. She was surprised when they swore their guards down at last. They no longer wore habits, their gray hair popping up in clumps or braided down their backs. Around that same time, Sinead O'Connor was sent to a Catholic reform school in Ireland, where the Magdalen laundry girls, grown old by then, were abandoned in an adjoining building, no medicine for their pain. As punishment, Sinead was made to sleep in the same room, their cries making her feel scared and useless, no way to help. Centuries before, St. Rita, the patron saint of impossible causes, was married at 12, abused. Later in life, she became a nun at St. Magdalene's after she levitated into the Italian convent. As an infant, bees swarmed into her mouth but didn't sting. I was allergic to bees and no saint. St. Rita made peace, mended political feuds. My mother could mend feuds within the family, but wasn't always overtly political. I once asked her about the Vietnam War and the Summer of Love. She said it was all a blur. I was busy those days working and taking care of you. And this next poem is called Prodigal Prayer. I kneel before my mother, trying to get her slipper socks over her swollen feet. Then she presses the remote control on her recliner to push her to an almost standing position. Once upright, she is not steady enough to get to the walker alone. Our goal, together to the bathroom on time. Shame, then tears. She soaks her depends because of a water pill that's supposed to help her puffy legs, but nothing, it seems, is helping. This is a week before her second fall, the bad one. Before the pneumonia and sippy cups, before her right arm no longer works, before the fingers on her right hand go numb. Even when I put a pen between them, she will not be able to sign her name. This is before the hospital and more sippy cups, one with the Nemo logo on loan from her great-grandson. This is before her stint in rehab, where Doug will try to teach her to put on socks with a blue plastic device she slips over her calf, a rope she holds in her good left hand. She will keep cheese popcorn in the seat of her walker and offer some to Doug, who looks like Matt Damon. She will be like a girl with a crush. She misses my dad, dead 11 years, but some days is angry he left her. This is before I drive her 20-year-old Toyota to see her in the Catholic nursing home, where the priest reminds us this too shall pass. I will think about my mother passing water, about her ultimate passing, her eventual death. I question if her pain will indeed pass, if what is passing through her body will keep on passing, looping into her, the morphine drip not enough to dilute the pangs in her spine, her neck, sciatic nerves running down both her legs. A chorus of nuns will sing while playing maracas and tambourines. One sister will drop her percussion as she falls asleep mid-song. It will be funny, then touching, then ultimately so profound, I become my mother taking care of a 2-year-old me. I become my mother who puts a pillow under my stomach when I can't breathe. With cupped hands, she pats my back just the way the doctor shows her, the doctor who says to pretend my back is a bongo drum. When the fever comes, she rubs my arms with alcohol and flips the pillow under my head to the cool side, puts a bucket near my bed, as I am sure to vomit. When we go to La Salette Shrine to see Christmas lights, I mistake the basin for donations near baby Jesus's cradle as a puke pail. All the kneeling people around us laugh, guessing perhaps what a sick child I am, and how many nights my mother sits up with me with Vicks and antibiotics, inhalers and picture books to help calm the cats who live in my chest making strange wheezing sounds. I'm allergic to cats and dogs and even stuffed animals, grass in the summer and leaves in the fall, lilacs which blossom in spring, and my lungs can't take the winter cold. No wonder my mother wraps the statue of the Virgin Mary she kept by her marital bed and puts it in her bottom drawer. The Virgin helped her to get pregnant, but after me, she's had enough. Soon, my mother is again with child anyway. She tells me how I still wanted all the attention, and as soon as my mother started nursing my sister, I put my hand in the diaper pail and stare at her, daring her to make me stop. When JFK was shot and my mother wept in front of the television, I blocked her view with my 2-year-old body and peed on the carpet. Now it is my mother peeing, mortified, drenching her nightgown. She once changed my diapers, and now I change hers. Oh, little mother, my helpless daughter, please forgive me, for I have sinned. It has been years since my last confession, my last therapy session. Hail Mary Jane brownies, please help my mother's appetite. Please help her to sleep. Hail Mary, full of grace, please heal my mother's bruised face. And I just remembered another connection that Julie used to send my mother postcards while because I didn't see my mother for 18 months because of COVID. I lived in Florida and she was in a nursing home in Rhode Island. And of course, I guess even if I'd been in Rhode Island, I couldn't see her, but Julie would send her postcards and Maureen would send her flowers. And she would always ask me, how the girls were. And it was just meant so much to my mother to even have that. I'm just feeling more and more connections as I read. This next poem is called Snow Globe. My mother tells me the nurses dress like astronauts. Mount St. Rita must go on the assumption that any of the patients could be infected. The RNs complain that it's hot under their masks and visors, gowns, and jumpsuits. My mother suggests the nurses open the window for air, even though it's chilly, even though it's a nor'easter. All they had to do was get me a blanket. Poor things, they're working so hard. Then her room is a globe, everyone's world shaken, snowflakes and stars. This next poem is about my mother as a much younger person, and it's called My Mother in a Grass Skirt. My mother in a grass skirt, in a hula dance pose, under the clotheslines absent of clothespins or clothes, her long hair strategically draped over her chest. She is 10. It's 1946. World War II has just ended. Her older brother back home. Her older brother, a father figure who will walk her down the aisle when she grows up. He bought her this gift, this rustling skirt, which scratches her waist, this artifact from the Pacific where he was stationed, where he saw a pregnant woman shot, the only atrocity he'd ever talk about. He was shell-shocked, the word for it then, and he woke up screaming in the bedroom next to my mother's, and my Grammy would go in to soothe him. He was 6 feet tall and 120 pounds. Not at all the way my mother remembered him before he left, when he loved food and made a snack of a butter and brown sugar sandwich before my Grammy even finished the supper dishes. By the time my mother married, by the time I was born, he regained his weight and became an accountant through the GI Bill. For the rest of his life, he liked numbers and things he could control. My sister and I loved him, our favorite uncle. My mother hated this topless picture of herself. Sometimes her brother's nightmares disturbed her sleep, and she'd doze off the next day in class. She said the grass skirt made her look fat. Of course, I know now it was much more than that. And this next poem is called Mercy. Just yesterday, her great-grandsons picked up baby toads and let them hop from their thumbs. I hold her hand and rub her arms and tell her she can let go. The toads landed in the grass where the boys were afraid to step on them. I'm thinking about my mom landing somewhere soft and green when even my rubbing hurts her, when she says, "Please don't touch me." And this is called Another Summer of Love, and it's a companion poem to the Summer of Love poem I read earlier. Another Summer of Love, 2021. My mother stopped wearing a bra in Mount St. Rita's hospice because the straps hurt her shoulders. I call her a hippie and put a flower in her hair. And the sixth poem is called Nourish. My mother's nipple, from where I once fed, pokes through her hospice gown as though it is one of the snaps. I'm not sure I should touch her breast, rearrange her, as so much of her body hurts, and at last she's floating on morphine. Her nipple once nourished me, but now nothing can nourish her as she refuses all food. I'm feeling useless, wanting to preserve my mother's dignity, when a nurse with a solution so obvious, so simple, pulls up the bedsheet. And this next poem is called Inheritance. My sister gives her grandsons the Cracker Barrel gift card my mother never got to use. They buy candy, Smarties, Cowtails, now and later long-lasting chews, then blow kisses up to their Gigi, who now lives beyond the cluttered ceiling in a gloriously retro heaven that smells like a Yankee seaside candle, or maybe pancakes. I kind of stole that last line from the little boy that said, "I think heaven smells like pancakes." And the other one said, maybe it smells like candles. So what can I say? I'm a little bit of a thief. And this last poem, oh, actually I had two more poems. The second to last poem is called Purse. And it's after Gertrude Stein, who wrote, A purse was not green, it was not straw color, it was hardly seen, and it had a use, a long use, and the chain was never missing. It was not misplaced. It showed that it was open. That is all that it showed. Purse. I emptied her white purse, tissue pack and reading glasses, coupons and a dress book. I once lived in a purse inside her, my first pink home, the umbilical cord, a knotted strap. When I grew up, I took care of my own purse, its pristine lining, never stretched or stuffed with a fetus. I waxed the buckles, polished the pink clit, the tender button that opened and closed my clutch. I carried pleasure inside me, my lips keeping so many secrets. I tipped my mother's empty purse upside down, its vulnerable silk insides torn. And then this is the last poem, which is called After the Tropical Storm. And thank you all very much for coming and listening. After the tropical storm, I walk into the Atlantic, the silt so soft I feel like I'm trudging through mud. I begin to swim towards the horizon. It is then I see the baby loggerheads, newly hatched, the size of quarters, paddling beside me. When they swerve, I swerve. When they bob on the surface, so do I. My mother has just died. I follow the turtles for 2 miles, at which point I become one of them, or they one of me, our shells hardening. We eat kelp and fish eggs, keep each other company. We grow and have babies of our own. Theirs are inside eggs. Mine are inside little poems. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Thank you.
That is Denise Duhamel. The book is Pink Lady from the University of Pittsburgh Press. And a couple observations. You know, it's one thing to read the book, which is it's so intimate. It's just such an intimate book that, you know, we are given this window to look into the memory of a life and the anticipation of a death, and then the death itself and the afterlife of the death. And, you know, that's a thing to marvel at, to be given a window into something so intimate. So I want to start there by going back to that idea of what Julie was talking about, that, you know, there's love poems and there's elegies, which also are love poems. And then there's anti-elegies, which also are love poems. And I just want to say to you, Denise, and more importantly to everyone listening, like, we actually literally have just been given a master class in narrative poetry here with Denise. In that, yeah, I mean, the long narrative, juxtaposing the long narrative poem with what Lucy Brock-Broido used to call the terrible crystals, the short poems, really amplifies what's happening in both in a collection. And it's so, like, so the book is its own class on how to write and put together a collection of narrative poetry. And finally, what I want to say about that idea of narrative poetry is what I think that you do so incredibly, incredibly well. And I know that you and Julie like to talk about emulation. And this is like, this idea of emulation is emulating how you pivot from one idea to another idea. It's like a Rubik's Cube of a poem to, like, watch it continue, or a mirror ball, continuing to watch it turn, 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 turn on itself, and utilizing repetition to help that out as well. So, folks, I mean, you have just literally had a master class in how to write that poem from the master, Denise Duhamel. So thank you I know. But it's really true. It's really true. So, thank you, Denise. I mean, what a beautiful reading. I've loved experiencing the book in the way that you can love experiencing a book like, a book like this. And of course, hearing you read is its own marvel. So thank you so much. Well, folks, as I've said, like this reading today for me, when you hear me always talk about putting together the constellations, and this is just such a beautiful constellation for already what you've heard and experienced with our first two readers. And now we're going to shift over to Octavio Quintanilla. And Octavio, if you're not familiar with Octavio's work, which I hope you are, um, I mean, it has its own exquisite, unique beauty to it, its resonances. And what I also marvel at about Octavio, and if you also don't know this about Octavio, is that he brings visual to his work because he also is just an astounding visual artist. And um, if you've not seen his work, uh, his visual work, I really want to encourage you to look up his frontextos and experience those as well. And the bringing together of those two mediums, I think just puts you, Octavio, at the forefront of an art renaissance here in the United States and internationally. And I'm really grateful that I live in a time when I get to experience a poet who is like many of the poets that we're reading here today, who work hybridly and in multiple genres, and adding that visual genre as well as to the textual genre that we're going to hear from today. So thank you for being just an incredible model of that, along with being the really amazing poetry citizen that you are. And I'm really sorry we didn't get to meet at AWP yet. Like, we missed each other twice now. It's not going to happen a third time. Wherever we are intersecting, we're not going to miss each other the next time. Well, Octavio Quintanilla is the author of the poetry collections If I Go Missing from Slough Press 2014, The Book of Wounded Sparrows from the Texas Review Press 2024, which, folks, was longlisted for the National Book Award. And congratulations, huge congratulations to you, Octavio, on that amazing accolade. I remember the day I saw it announced. And another new collection, our poets today are really putting the work in front of us in beautiful ways. Las Horas Imposibles, The Impossible Hours, winner of the 2024 Ambrosio Prize of the Academy of American Poets from the University of Arizona Press. Octavio is the founder and director of the Literature Arts Festival Verso Frontera, publisher of A la Brava Press, and former poet laureate of San Antonio, Texas. You know, we love our poets laureate here. His frontextos, visual poems, have been published and exhibited widely, and he teaches literature and creative writing at Our Lady of the Lake University. It is an incredible pleasure to have you with us here today, Octavio.
Thank you, Sandy. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you, Sandy, for all of that, the introduction. Thank you, Denise, beautiful poems. Julie, I read your whole book, beautiful. And also, thank you, Don, for reminding me that I had a reading today. Uh, yesterday was the San Antonio Book Festival, and And it was a very long day, and I lived by my calendar, and I completely forgot that I had a reading. And then I looked at my Facebook messages, and Don was reminding me, "Hey, here's the link." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, let me get some coffee." I just woken up. Uh, so yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm still like asleep, but I'm gonna read some poems anyway. And what I want to do is, I'm gonna read some very short poems, and I'm gonna read a poem from the Book of Wounded Sparrows. Then I'll read a poem from The Impossible Hours, and then what I want to do is read a few poems from my notebooks the new poems that I'm writing. And what I kind of want to keep up with the theme of. Let's see, it gets kind of dark here. With the theme of, I guess, love poems. So I'll do that. Um, and this is from the Book of Wounded Sparrows. This one's called Love Poem with Two Fires. First, I dream my teeth are falling off and I try to push them back in place. Then I dream I take things out of my mouth, cotton, for instance, or a woman's endless braid of hair. I see my future move ahead without me, and no one comes to explain what I'm ceasing to be. My best nights are when I dream you are a fire in the middle of the wilderness. I'm your favorite tree burning in that fire. And this one's from Las Horas Imposibles, which is a bilingual book. I wrote it in Spanish, did a translation, then I had a friend of mine help me co-translate it. And I'll just read the translation. It's been days. It's been days since I think of my death. I only think of the way you embrace me at midday. Think of the bright patience and how you wait for me at evening. I remember the nights when I coughed so much I spit out my own breath. And how you get out of bed without opening your eyes, disappear, then return in silence and half light, and your right hand the heavens in a glass of water. And now I'm going to read some poems from my notebooks. They're new poems, and I think they go with I think they're love poems. I don't know. You let me know. A tree by the river. A tree by the river, and its leaves fall on the water. And my lover tells me with a sigh, she misses her country. She opens her hand and sees the mountains of her village where she first fell in love. And her sigh is a flame, and her eyes are two nights, and the river carries my verses downstream. Confession. Now I confess my tongue is made of doubt, and my lover anchors her head to my chest to tell me that children are dying, and citizens are persecuted, and the prisons flower with human heads, and I caress her hair, thinking this must be the way she loves me in her mother tongue. Sleepless tonight. Sleepless tonight, I see my lover's left eye open like a cage, though she doesn't know this is how she dreams of one day sitting under an olive tree and see between the branches an aeroplane dragging its white tail, a sign that the war is over and that her mother will be waiting at the threshold of what hasn't been destroyed. This next one is also new. It's called Divine Alphabet, and it's the title comes uh, from Jorge Luis Borges, who quotes Thomas Carlyle. And I think the idea was that all human beings are, or human beings are a divine alphabet. And I don't know, I like that idea. And so I wrote this poem, Divine Alphabet. All the questions the firefly syntax in the dark glow kindly, like the match my lover strikes to light a cigarette. I hold her hand as if by this I measure all the love I am, still waiting to give to the world. Not once her breath opened to say I'm done, and held me like an ember against her chest in spite of injury, the burn. I want to touch what you're missing, she'll say. Give it a name. Soon she'll learn no name existed for this hunger, no knife to cut it in half. Years later, her invisible hand still lights the letter I and the word happiness like a candle. And by this light I see the last strands of hair she left in the sink. So let me go to another notebook. My father never read to me when I was a boy. Other children would come to school and talk about the books their fathers read to them. I was jealous. Sometimes I would bring home the book meant for us to keep resting on our desk. In his late 60s, my father learned to write his name. Soon after, he was dead. Burning. I found out trees are afraid of fire, how the young ones tremble at the striking of a match. When no one is looking, the trees bow their heads in prayer. The felled ones eventually give up on God and welcome the burning. This is untitled. By the end of this poem, nothing significant would happen to me or to you. I will read it and you will listen, and looking at me read, you will wonder how the words look on the page. Wonder about where exactly in my utterance I break the line. I want to earn your trust as you listen to me trying to get out of my own poem, the one I'm reading to you now, and that has not yet reminded you of suffering. There's no lesson here, just you and I trying to touch the core of our marrow, you by listening, and I by the failure to confirm that you are. Distance. When I drive from one city to another, I think of all the things that could cause my death. This time, I didn't fall asleep or had a tire blow out at high speed. This time, the road was quiet, so quiet that I thought I heard tree branches breaking their hearts for me. So I think I'll read maybe one more. Let's see, where's the love poem here? I don't even know if those last ones were love poems, you all. I've been writing a lot of like, I guess, Ars Poeticas. So this one's one of them. And And I'll end my reading with this poem. Poem. A poem goes out into the night looking for its poetry, looking for its face, looking for its metaphors, looking for its smile. A poem goes out into the rain looking for its offspring. Even that mixed metaphor it wanted to abort, and its offspring are sleeping with each other. And some would call it incest, and some would call it a sin, and some would call it hunger, and some would call it myth. A poem goes out into its loneliness and finds its missing metaphors, finds its missing smile, and finds its missing offspring who keep sleeping with each other so as to make a poem whose poetry will stay. Thank you, you all. Appreciate it. I think you're the first ones to have heard those new poems, so makes me happy.
Well, that makes me happy too. Wow. Wow. Yeah. All the, all the love there. The love poem that we don't even know is a love poem yet. I that we can't even name it as a love poem, but we're like longing for it to be a love poem or not sure. I love being inside that kind of container with a poet as they're sharing that poem and and articulating the inarticulable. And when you were talking about the whole idea of whether the poem is a poem, I was thinking about the candle and what part of love is the candle? Is it the wick? Is it the body of the candle? Is it the little blue flame? Is it the flame itself? And I feel like in the poems that you shared today, we got to see every single piece of a candle being its own poem. And love that the candle, in all its incandescent and all its parts, when it comes together, contains. And that's extraordinary and not extraordinary because I think what it speaks, what I was also experiencing was you brought the visual so much to the poetry, and that and then it made so much sense to me that of course you're also an artist, a painter, because I could see those images. Those
Mm.
images were their own were their own ghosts that became their own bodies, like right in front of my eyes. Thank you so much. And
Dude,
thank you for sharing. I mean, I feel like you opened those notebooks and it was like we were inside these secret vaults with you. I mean, that is extraordinary.
well, I like that. I like that you say that because, they are kind of like, even though you probably, they've been through a process, so I know exactly what's in there, but I think they're also in the notebook still because I haven't transcribed them. So I think changes will come. They might expand. I don't know, but I really like just that kind of very short poem type, but imagistic almost.
Well, I won't even say they were almost imagistic. They were imagistic, and I loved, it really spoke to also what we saw with Denise's Terrible Crystals. They were these really beautiful companions to that as well. And, the final thing I'll say before we turn to Tina is that I was really reminded as you were reading the poems from the Book of Wounded Sparrows and La Horas Imposibles. I was really also reminded as you were reading, I was hearing also one of my favorite poems and how it moved, which was Lee Young Lee's The City in Which I Love You. And I was just really hearing the echoes. I mean, you have your own voice, of course,
Yeah.
but but the movement
Hmm.
and the intention and the unsayable suddenly coming into view.
Mhm.
The way that you did that, I heard that little echo of Lee Young Lee as well in that extraordinary poem.
Thank you
So
for that. I'm a student of Lee Young Lee, or was. I guess I still am, but yeah, I'm glad you picked that up. And
you you li you listened well. You listened well. And again,
thank
bringing in more connections as we continue on with the reading. Thank you so much.
you.
Muchas
You're
gracias. Folks, our next poet, the connections continue, and we're really fortunate because now we're actually going to get to see, I'm going to get to show you, and maybe Tina will show it to you as well. So this is, what I'm about to show you is Tina's book, Obsidian, from Frontexto 51. And Octavio was talking about fire, or, being poetic with fire, not talking about fire, being poetic with fire. And there we see how Octavio sometimes sees fire, and it is the cover of Tina Carlson's this talk about a book um, that to me acts like a prism. This I also was so fortunate to hear you read poems from Obsidian, and I loved thinking about the fire within it. And of course, it's based also on glass, volcanic glass, and that has a connection for us. Anytime anyone is invoking glass, I feel like we're kindred spirits. So the beauty of this constellation continues between Octavio and you. And I'm sure we're going to discover some other amazing, amazing connections as you share your poetry, which, as I said, you're in for a beautiful, beautiful next 15 minutes, my friends. Well, Tina Carlson is a New Mexico poet and the author of 3 full-length collections of poetry: Ground, Wind, This Body from the University of New Mexico Press, 2017. We Are Meant to Carry Water from 3 A Taos Press, a collaboration with 2 other New Mexico poets, and A Guide to Tongue-Tie Surgery, another incredible collection that I'm so fortunate to have experienced from the University of New Mexico Press, 2023, which was the recipient of the New Mexico Arizona Book Award for Poetry. Her chapbook, Obsidian, is by Dancing Girl Press in 2024. And her essay, Mothers and Manta Rays, won second place in the 2025 Tucson Literary Book Festival's prize for nonfiction, and her flash piece, Jackie is Off Her Meds Again, has recently been nominated for a Best of the Net Microfiction Award. Would you please welcome Tina Carlson?
Thank you, Sandy. You know how to lay it on, girl, and make a person feel good. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to read with these amazing writers. Oh my God, I'm so stunned by the tenderness of these poets and the beauty of these poems that have been read. And thank you, Kim, for all you've done to help organize this reading as well. As Sandy mentioned, I'm going to be reading from Obsidian, my chapbook, which I love, Julie. I love the theme of love poems, and I was trying to think. There are love poems in here to people, but the book in general is a love poem to the force of metamorphosis, which I greatly praise and am thankful for, usually. So there's lots of volcanoes in the book. And then it's also, some of the poems take place at a time in my youth when I was coming out as a lesbian and getting into all kinds of trouble. So I'm going to start with a poem called Poas, which is an active volcano in Costa Rica. Let's say my lover was a volcano. We made jokes of dirt and stone dust, blankets, the snoring of cows. She tricked the sad gods into the mystery of her mouth. I was always fighting for air, she the one hungry. I wanted her craters sulphurous, how I vanished when she exhaled in her smoker's cough way. In the distance, Mars shot darts at Saturn, whistles and barks, stars the colors of bosque and blood. Cows pushed their muzzles through slats in the wall and breathed in soft syllables of dreams. Each night lasted longer than hours, I swear. As we lay there in dark, planets had their way with us. Clouds hovered low as smoke, kept those fires from flaring. The next poem is called Cimex hemipterus, which is the Latin name of the common bedbug. Out of the mattress seam they sneak, small as apple seeds starved. The sleek syringes of their mouths prick toward exhaled gases, heat, sweat, feast into vessels and pulse, each stomach a blood envelope. My first girlfriend loved to sink her teeth in me, pressed to leave a mark, a toothy bruise. Smelling of mint, she kissed other girls near the bulk bins and soap, took my own broken glass to her throat, sealed vow. The bugs keep us from clotting. After a long, warm drink, they descend in the dark as we did on our knees, searching for shards and a lick of cut skin. This is a poem written in the form of a pantoum, which just basically means, if you don't know what that form is, you'll hear repeated lines. This is called Origin Story. I once lived on a ditch, dreamed of a girl named me, a girl who liked girls, lived at the edges of celebrations. The dream of a girl named me had a father from a long line of witches at the edges of celebrations. His mother sewed him a dress made out of mud. The father came from a long line of witches. He had the hands and heart of a girl. His mother sewed him a dress made out of mud. A priest removed his clothes. He had the hands and heart of a girl. His sister spoke to him from the stars. A priest removed his clothes. He told him how pretty he was, how tender. His sister spoke to him from the stars. He married a girl who wished she was a boy. She told him how pretty he was, how tender. She stifled her cries behind crickets and crows. He married a girl who wished she was a boy. She was surly and sad. She was trouble. She stifled her cries behind crickets and crows. She hid her skirts in the wild fields of summer. She was surly and sad. She was trouble. Everyone else was busy looking in the mirror. She hid her skirts in the wild fields of summer. When she said skin, she meant dirt. Everyone else was busy looking in the mirror, a girl who lived at the edges of celebrations. When I say skin, I mean dirt. I once lived on a ditch named me. Thank you. So here's another connection. Julie, I used to live in Seattle, and I lived there when Mount St. Helens erupted, and that was 1980. And it was a magnificent and horrific, really, extremely destructive as volcanic eruptions are. But in Seattle, we woke up and basically the entire city was covered in ash. It was May, and it looked as if it had snowed. So this is a poem called Mount St. Helens, and it starts with an epigraph by Li Po. I look up, gaze at the mountain moon, then back, dreaming of my old home. Spring snow, cooled ash, you first white gleam, then rubbled. Bright seam of moon tended the burning creeks. Forest char, bone piles, trundle bed, basement, your steam breathed a new sky, a world dense as salt. Men knocked at the door, singed skin. A hinge opened up, sprouts greened in your sludge. We climbed your broken spine. I saw we were bowls, holy. In your hands, the moon disappeared. Thank you. Here's a love poem to spiders. Sorry if I trigger anybody. I dream a sea of spiders. I'm ready to be undone, webbed in sentences. Beware the sins of brooms and rags, the urge to purge the spinners. The hag in the yard is still. I swim in the wind she has spun. Each thread from her gut is garden tool tired. Don't weep or sweep the meaty prey. Heed all the cob's dark warnings. Don't shudder the spinnerets. Your legs will flower in branching veins. The silk of your tongue unravel. I love spiders. Okay, a few more poems. This is called A Beginner's Guide to Pyromancy. Pyromancy is the use of divination using flame. Our emergency instructions are smoldering. We thought love began as ash and flame. Let's excavate eaves of morgue, then we will know the nature of thirst. Train this heat in your hands, bonfire confined, like meat of a heart, beating blood while caged in bone. And what of my mother, incarcerated? She holds the blaze unafraid as it blisters her hands into incantations. Don't be divine, be rudimentary. Clavicle, scapula, humerus, rib. When we touch, the afternoon may burn a scar. Here's another connection, Denise. I'm a nurse, like your mama. I'm glad to be connected to your mama in that way. Okay, two more poems. I grew up on the Front Range of Colorado after the war, and my father was a vet. And this is a poem honoring all of that. In the palm of my hand, rivers. Because the fields of my childhood vanished, I carry smoke in my hair. I bed dank dirt in my hands. My father shook his wars, sank the hum of their dangers in mud. The deeper he dug, the more it smelled like bread. Mothers place seeds in the graves of those guns. I have not forgotten the rivers that flowed underground. How the cottonwood roots sipped, made ships for my brothers and me. We sailed to places where trees were called palm, where night's catharsis couldn't break us. If days were fruit, those days were plums, succulent in their viscid light and endless sources of juice. When fall turned leaves to breezing husks, we blanketed in mulch, with bulbs making food of the ground. The last poem I'm going to read is the last poem of the chapbook. And it takes place on the Chama River, which is a tributary of the Rio Grande River in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. It's called Accidental Baptism. Autumn gold appearing in green, my lover wants to canoe. Because we know nothing of current and cliff, I fall out and am pinned by the prow. She watches me drown in the Chama, a shimmer after the flip, the water black and ice. I know what it is to be breathless when my mouth is full of mud. Death twins me. She tenders stone like a face, kisses the waves that enter. I am so cold, calm when her hands look like mine. We fish the bed we make. A sudden lift, and I am lung again. Sentences of birds in the bluff's wet red, halo of sun above the rush. This could be a beginning. Thank you.
Ooh, you just brought me right back to that auditorium in Albuquerque where you were there on stage reading, and I heard you read for the first time. And I was mesmerized, it was mesmerizing in the same amazing way. And folks, the four of you, go to the chat when we send the chat to you to see the comments that folks have made. I want to pull up Mary Louise Kiernan describing your work because she's done it better than I can do. She says both ethereal and earthy. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, you nailed it, Mary Louise. You got it. That's, the poems are just so exquisite in being a different and similar kind of fire than we just heard from Octavio. Octavio, that candle, right? That candle. And yours, that explosion of being inside the volcano, like this amazing juxtaposition. And all that ash, all that ash, all that ash, that would become dirt. That would become dirt. The very fiery Tina Carlson, thank you. It was a chapbook that I read for my Sealy Challenge actually in August of last year. It's Obsidian, and is it does it ever have all the elements in it? I can't even express it enough. And there's that beautiful front texto 51 of Octavio's.
Thank you, Octavio. Beautiful cover.
Beautiful. Well, usually I gush on about readings, but like this constellation was everything I had imagined. And really, all I'm going to say is that it was a constellation, the four of you, that lived up to its billing, more than lived up to its billing, far exceeded its billing of a National Poetry Month new book showcase. Truly, truly. So folks, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure you won't mind. I'm sure you are very eager to unmute and show your deep appreciation for our four just exceptional poets today: Julie Marie Wade, Denise Duhamel, Octavio Quintanilla, and Denise Carlson. Please do unmute and show your appreciation.
Bravo, bravo.
Oh, wonderful.
Very good.
Stunning readings, everyone.
Huzzah, huzzah.
Well, I remind you, everyone, that we are still inside the volcano of Poetry Month. We're getting to the halfway mark, actually. We're almost there. And I want to encourage you to purchase these books from these presses that have amplified and given us these beautiful voices of these four poets that we just heard today. We'll have the links. We have them available here, but we'll also have them available tomorrow. We will do another big shout out for this reading today. And of course, this is a reading I'll go back to, again, masterclass in poetry. And what I really loved about this reading, I feel like, is it was really a masterclass in everything. I mean, we had the chapbook here, we had the full-length collections, we had hybridity, we got to explore the image, we got to explore the lyric, and we got to live for almost 90 minutes in the swirl of love in so many incarnations, so many prismatic incarnations. And that's about all I can ask of a poetry reading. So my deepest, deepest gratitude for this 90 minutes of my life. Yeah, I love it. And I hope you all will continue to resonate with the reading from today. And of course, I hope you will return next week. I would not be surprised to learn of new poems emerging from this reading today, which is the ultimate flattery. That is the ultimate indicator, is if it inspires new work. So come on back next week to our final reading for April. It is, of course, our wild card open mic, and the wilder, the better, particularly during National Poetry Month. Again, my final appreciation to Julie Marie Wade, Denise Duhamel, Octavio Quintanilla, and Tina Carlson, and to all of you joining us here in the Zoom room, and to all of you that will be watching the recording. We know there's hundreds of you that watch after the program has been broadcast, with deep thanks, of course, for those recordings to Don Krieger and to Kim Ports Parsons, who puts the word out for poetry all the time. I'm your host, Sandy Yannone. I have loved being with you. Talk about love. I have loved being with you here today, and I will love being with you next week. Please do join us. Have a very good week. And as I always say at the end of the readings, take very good care of yourselves. Take exquisite care of your beloveds. And look what happens when we keep writing. Keep uplifting each other, keep writing, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Till next time.